Hey, friends. I think that sometimes it can be threatening to people within Christian communities, especially when they hold a confessional view, to suggest that not everything in the gospel accounts is as original as we may think it to be at first glance. And to learn that some of the notions of like this apocalyptic end times talk and death and resurrection, that these were theological notions that were like in the air during the first century. Well, I mean, really a couple of hundred years before the first century and a couple of hundred years into the first century. I think sometimes those who do have kind of a dogmatically committed confessional view can struggle a little bit with some of the historical and critical analysis of the biblical material. But I would actually push back on that idea, because I think the more that you learn about the context and composition of the gospel accounts, the more resources that someone may be equipped with to better understand and to like deepen and enrich their connection to some of the theological notions that are in the gospel accounts, which is a big reason why I like maintain my Substack and maintain and like do videos like this. And yesterday was a really great example. I take the assigned gospel reading from the Revised Common Lectionary and I read that through a Jewish lens every Sunday. Well, I work on it all week, but I publish the essay every Sunday. And there's always just terrific wisdom that's in there when we're able to like open our eyes and ears to it. And yesterday, I already did a video on this that you can scroll back to and see yesterday. I just finished mowing the lawn and I looked like sweaty and hot. But today I'm like showered and don't look as sweaty and hot. Yesterday is a lot of cool stuff is going on. One of the things that I want to lift up right now is about, so John the Baptist and Jesus feature in this thing yesterday from the Gospel according to Matthew. This, of course, is an anonymous gospel. We don't know who the writer is. This is constructed a few decades after Jesus' life, ministry, and death. This is borrowing the gospel according to Matthew and Luke are both borrowing pretty significantly from the gospel according to Mark. Matthew is doing some work to expand on Mark and to clarify some of the points, especially around Jewish cultic practice and engagement with the Hebrew Bible. That's one of the characteristics of Matthew. A big focus on righteousness, which in that context means Torah observance or living in alignment with the law. Now, I talked about some yesterday. I'm going to talk about one thing today. I'm going to do another video to post on yet even more of this, because there's just fascinating stuff to dig into. And so we should look at all the fascinating stuff. But one of the things I want to talk about right now is this idea of John the Baptist and the description of John the Baptist and how this connects to other areas. So John the Baptist is described as, this wilderness figure who's wears a leather belt, which is interesting, and is engaged in baptismal practices and preaches a lot about the end times and the coming Messiah. Well, all of those characteristics do attach to another prophetic figure in the Hebrew Bible, namely Elijah. So what we can learn about Elijah by understanding the tradition of the scriptures of Israel is that Elijah is purported to be the forerunner of the Messiah. So that intentional use of Elijah and connection to John the Baptist is intended to make an argument to readers of the gospel account. And even in the Lucan birth narrative, it's important. There are 4 different gospels. We need to read them each independently. While there is overlap between them, especially in the synoptic tradition, Mark and Matthew and Luke, and really as Luke acts. But we need to understand that each gospel is doing its own slightly unique and distinct thing, so they each need to be read on their own terms. At any rate, in the Lucan narrative, in the Annunciation of John the Baptist, these things are already spelled out. Coming with the power of Elijah is a line that you'll find there in the Annunciation of John the Baptist. You'll also discover that in the Annunciation, the angel says, listen, this guy is not going to take any strong drink. That's in the Lucan account. When we go to the Matthean account from yesterday, chapter 11, verses 16 to 19, and then 25 to 30, we see this repeated once again. This John the Baptist who doesn't take strong drink, and people even believe that he was possessed by a demon. Now, I talk about that demon possession in yesterday's video, so scroll back and see yesterday's to see a little bit of a discussion on that. But what's interesting and I'm going to do a separate thing about the no strong drink stuff that connects to the Nazarite tradition within the scriptures of Israel. Samson and Samuel were two Nazarites that are named as such in the text, and it seems like the gospel writers are trying to connect John the Baptist to that tradition. It is a tradition of asceticism, very ascetic lifestyle, almost a monastic lifestyle, a wilderness lifestyle for John the Baptist. But all of these connections, right? The description of John as somebody wearing like a leather belt. Well, Elijah is described as wearing a leather belt as well. I think it's John the Baptist. They say a coat made of camel's hair and a leather belt. And so all of these are intentional connections. It isn't accidentally the case. It isn't that there was some prophecy that then was fulfilled and the gospel writers are just documenting what happened and it just turns out it fulfills this other stuff. Rather, the gospel writers, the evangelists, are making intentional, bringing in evidence to make intentional connections to the scriptures of Israel that first century audience would have connected with. They would have been aware of their tradition. So on John the Baptist in particular, we see this really intentional connection to Elijah as the forerunner of the Messiah, as an attempt to produce evidence to make an argument on Jesus' behalf as the Mashiach, or as the Christos, or as the anointed one. And so by reading the Torah, by reading the prophets, by reading extra biblical Jewish material, we can better fill in the gaps of some of the gospel accounts. So people from a confessional setting ought not feel threatened or undermined by that, but they see this as an opportunity to deepen their own connection to their confessional stance.